Good day. I'm life coach Tim Bryan of Yokebreakerscoaching, and welcome back to my channel, To Minister Freedom. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. And if you could leave some comments, that would be awesome. Really helps out. And maybe help me be able to connect with you guys a bit better, too. Today's thing I wanted to discuss is find healing, tell your story. You know, my wounding traumatic event that I had when I was young, I've said this before, was being present when my grandmother had drowned. It was just such a traumatic experience, just being helpless to get her out, to do anything, no matter how we tried. And the hard part was that the days following, in the weeks and months, I never received any sort of counseling or any help. I can remember sitting in the pew of the church during the funeral, and I looked to my left. I still remember this. I remember seeing my dad, and then my grandfather, and on the other side of him, my uncle. All the males of the Bryan family, the older, and none of them were crying. Not a tear, not a sob. And it taught me to bury my emotions down, and it hurt. And other things like that, not having emotions in the family, maybe put things down. I didn't express that. I wasn't not allowed to express that. So I had to bury things. Now, I didn't go to alcohol or drugs like some people have, and but addictive behavior is addictive behavior. I got caught up in pornography, which was what my dad had magazines next to his bed, and that was a measure of me to started going through cycles of addiction. The whole addiction cycle was going on there. And anyways, it's harder because you can smell alcohol, you can see things, you can watch people drug crazed, their eyes, glazed over, all the different things that you can see. But with pornography, you can hide it and really build up a lot of walls and lies around that because you can hide it for a long time. But it will come out, and it did come out for me. What started that process is there was a time where my dad and his sisters and stuff were writing emails back and forth to each other about events that happened where they grew up, which was our family ranch. That's where my grandmother drowned when we were there at the end of the school year. And so they were telling stories, all the good things, stuff like that. And I just really felt prompted. Well, it's been 30 years. So I was 9.5 when it happened. So I was 39.5. Oh, well, I just felt like, okay, well, it's been long enough, it's in the past. And that's the easy thing to say. Oh, yeah, well, my grandmother died, but that was a long time ago. I'm okay. Wow, I was pretty quick to say that. And you don't really attach any emotions on there. But I thought, okay, I'm fine. So I'll just tell everybody kind of finally what really happened that day. And so I started writing the whole scenario and started thinking about what happened and the excitement that we had and the shock of my grandmother when she was drunk, and then when she finally drowned, and just what I was seeing. And I started crying. And I was sobbing so hard. And I felt like I was 9.5 years old again. And you know why? Because emotionally, that's where I stopped growing. I killed myself off emotionally at that point, shut things down at 9.5 that I wasn't able to grow up emotionally as long as physically. Why do you think so many young men and men cavort around? They're acting like kids. Well, probably they had trauma when they were about that age that they're acting right now, and that's all they really know. When they express their emotions, they can only express it as 8-year-old or 9-year-old or 12-year-old, whatever age they had the trauma where they got shut down emotionally. And that's what they're expressing, and that's what I expressed. And it wasn't until even a few years later that when I finally got into a group and I was able to share some of the things that happened, that I was able to cry, to grieve, to heal, and begin that process of growing up emotionally, catching up to next time I told a story and I really cried about something, I felt more like I was 13 or 14, and so forth, until I finally caught up to where I'm at, where I'm current. And that's all because I had a chance to finally sit and tell my story. something very similar happened to this. My youngest daughter, whom I love very much, she's adopted out of foster care, and she was going through obviously some horrendous things and would never open up to any of the therapists that she'd had, fully at least, and talk about what happened to her. And so she went to a group home, lied her way out, basically faked it out. And 6 months later, she'd had to go back in because she really fully self-destructed at that point. And I've been telling her all along that you got to tell us your story. You got to let us know what's going on. We're going to get healing. And she knew it, but it's hard to do that. So when she got in there, we didn't really talk with her for the first 5 months. We came out and visited, but we didn't work on any of the issues at all for 5 months. We just talked to the counselor until she figured out kind of like why she's in there. And when she finally came to the realization that, I should have worked on my stuff the first time I was in when I had an opportunity, it's like, okay, now we're ready to break down. So I told her that you need to tell your story. You've got to tell your story. So she agreed that she needed to do that. But it was still three and a half months later before she actually started writing the story. It was almost 5 months before she actually started sharing that. Because what happened was that we would get there, our weekly Zoom meeting is coming in because she was in Utah and we're in California. And it's a long ways away. And she got in a fight with this other student or the staff. And do you want to talk about that? Because, most parents wanted to talk about, and I just want them to function in society. Well, I wasn't satisfied with my daughter being able just to function in society. I wanted her to be healed, healthy, and whole. And so I would tell the counselor, no, I don't care about that. I really don't care about that. If we get her to tell the story and start to grieve and heal that, then this other stuff will go away. So she finally got it to where she got her story written out. And it's like, all right, start reading it. 1 second. Hey, kids. The dogs. They're all having fun over here, playing. But they make a little bit of noise. Yeah. So, as I was saying, with her, 1 second again. I got to get this. Boys and girl. Thank you. They're good dogs. I love them. So, as I was telling her that, when she started to read her story, bam, she was going through weeks and months just quickly. Bam, this happened. I said, stop after about 5 minutes. I said, I went back to a couple of stories. I said, I want to hear more about this. I want you to expand on this. I want to come back next week, and I want to hear about this event. And so she did that. When she came back the next week, she started talking, and she started expanding on that, and got this, wow, this is, and she got something. I could hear a little catch in her voice. And I said, honey, sweetheart, stop. I said, so what was it like being 5 years old and your mom banning you and having to leave you to parent your younger brother and provide food for him at 5 years old? And she just started crying. And I started crying too. Because you see, for her, it was the same thing. Oh, this happened. I don't have to stop and think about the emotions that were behind that and what it did to me. But when she slowed down and actually started to feel that, she actually to cry and to grieve and to heal. And that gave the counselor a lot more to work with. And we went through weeks and weeks of this of her story. And I cried with her all the way through it. Some horrendous stuff happened to her, but she never, ever had a chance to grieve that. Now, I would love to say that she's just doing perfect right now and makes all the best decisions in the world, which is not true. I mean, she's 21 and got a little boy, my grandson, I love him. And the boyfriend she's with, the guy, the father, he's not a healthy individual in any strength or any of the word at all. But our relationship is restored. She actually came to a point where she could actually accept me and my wife as her mother and father. adopted, that we actually did love her. She's able to accept our love rather than projecting the hatred she had of her mom onto us, and that hurt and the pain. And restored and actually established a full father-daughter, mother-daughter relationship where she's able to receive love and give love. And for that, everything was worth it. Now, it's all because she was able to tell her story and find the grieving and the healing. And now there's a lot of forgiveness that came with that. And I've talked about forgiveness. And what the forgiveness, after we comprehensively forgave everybody, was able to release her. I asked her when we got through with that, she goes, how'd you feel? And she goes, well, the first time that I can remember, I'm not angry. That's what forgiveness can bring. But we're talking about telling our story. Telling our story allows us to actually feel the emotions and to allowing us to grieve the pains that we've had. Grieving that and healing from that and being able to share that and process that and work through it allows us to grow up emotionally. Because our emotional age needs to be pretty close to what our actual age is. We need to be current on that so that when things come up, we know how to process it and deal with it. If we can't process the past, how are we going to process the future? And how process actually what's happening right now, We can't. You can't. You have to be able to tell your story in detail. Write down all the stuff that happened around it. I remember the breeze that was coming down. I remember seeing this emotion on their face. I remember seeing that. I distinctly remember seeing my grandmother turn over when she passed out. I mean, I put all those, and what it did to me, how I felt about that, and be able to, all the little details that I could remember, I put into that, and other things, and it helps me to touch back to those emotions that I should have been feeling back then and grieving that I repressed, and then get it out, and I can process that, and I can stay current, and then other people would know me. And it's when I'm known and fully known, I feel loved. I feel accepted. And I have healthy ways to meet my needs rather than going to addictive behavior to repress those emotions, to shove them down, and then add new ones onto that. And that thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what happens? Pretty soon that balloon pops. Bam! It explodes out there. Then I got to blow up a new balloon, stuff those feelings back in there, and make that balloon a little bit bigger. And the next time it pops, I'm back to where I'm at again with addictive behavior. That can be headed off to the past by telling a story. Now, I mean, find a good counselor, find a good friend, find somebody that cares, but you got to tell your story. You can connect with me. Start connecting with me through text message or emails. We can contact. We can get together on a Zoom and walk ourselves through that. Listening ear. But you need to connect with somebody to tell your story. Because you are important. You know what? The guys that tell me their story when I'm in group, and I hear them, and I hear their heart, and I hear them cry, and I grieve and get things out, I feel more connected with them than people that stay just on the surface. I love them more because they were willing to share a vulnerable part of their life with me. They didn't have to, but they trusted me enough to bring a part of their heart out there to potentially be stomped on, but I don't stomp. But pulling that out there and taking that risk, and then what do? We go back and say, thank you so much. I love you. Here's your heart back. You're safe. You're okay. You're good. That's what people want to hear. That's what they need to hear. That's what you need to hear. That you're okay. You can tell your story and it's not going to crush you. That's actually going to free you to grow up, for you to love yourself and allow others to love you. All that's going to happen when you start telling your story. But what if they knew? If they knew about this about me, well, when they do know about that, you're going to find out that it was hard for you, yes, but it wasn't this big monster that you thought it was. So if you want to find healing You need to tell your story. So please leave some comments, things I'd like to hear. I'm life coach Tim Bryan, and this is 2 Minutes to Freedom.